Okay. So, welcome to the University Aula. My name is Frode Guriby, and I'm an associate professor at the Department for Information Science and Media Studies, and a part of the ViSmedia project. And I will guide you through this day as your conference host. First, there are some security information. So we have an emergency exit at the middle of the wall, not this first door, but in the middle of there and in the back. So if there should be an evacuation, you should go through there calmly. This event is filmed. We are not streaming it live, but some might be streaming live as well through Facebook and stuff, but you will learn more about that later. There are some journalism students here. They will cover this event with new technologies. So if you're asked some questions by students, please help them. And remember to turn your mobile phones on silent. So this is the second conference of our ViSmedia project, and this project is funded by the Research Council, and it addresses how visual technologies are adopted in the news media, how these technologies change the conditions for journalism and both the production and consumption of news. But we seek not only to understand these conditions, but we also have a more normative agenda, and this is anchored in the EU framework for responsible research and innovation, just to provide you with some background. Last year, we focused on drones in this conference, and this year we are taking a closer look at another culprit, the mobile phone, with all its apps and the camera. But we also have great help with this conference from NCE Media, so we are very grateful for all their help. And we have a very varied and I think exciting program here today with a mix of practitioners and researchers. And first of all, we will start with a formal opening by the Prorector, Lise Fimreite.
Thank you, Frode. Dear all, I'm very pleased to welcome you to this conference hosted by UIB, ViSmedia and NCE Media. It's a pleasure to welcome you here in this magnificent University Aula. The theme for this conference, Mobile Spotting in the Media, is highly relevant and very important. Smartphones have changed the world. I am a professor in political science, and I did teaching in methodology. And when I said to my student, how much of what we are talking about do you imagine that Henrik Ibsen would have understood? Just think about that, how all our concepts have changed. And someone, I don't know how reliable it is, but someone had found out that Ibsen would have understood about 15 or 20% of what we are speaking about. So smartphones and all other technology have changed the world. And smartphones represent enormous opportunities, especially for those working in the field of journalism, media, and communication. Today, almost all of us have smartphones, and many of us are online 24/7, even if we not always want to admit that. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat are important in our lives. If someone wants our attention, they are willing to use a great amount of resources on those platforms, both human and financial resources. According to MME, there are almost 3.3 million Facebook profiles in Norway. It's a great society out there. So it's no wonder that political parties, companies, celebrities, newspapers, and I are embracing these platforms. As Rectorate of the University of Bergen, we have also embraced those platforms and are using them quite actively, more or less every day, to reach out to students, to staff, to government, and to others. The university as an institution also use them. UAB is streaming live from events, conferences, seminars, and debates. Even our executive board meetings are streamed live. Twitter, Facebook, Facebook Live, Snapchat, they give journalists and reporters opportunities to go live in seconds, more or less from everywhere. At this conference, we will learn more about these developments and listen to those who use the tools in their daily work. Last year, as Frode said, there was a similar conference, and I also opened that conference, and the theme was drones in media. There are many similarities and parallels between this year's theme and last year's theme. Both smartphones and drones represent great and wonderful opportunities, but raise also important issues and dilemmas. In a media industry constantly pushing and constantly undergoing development, the drive to be quick on site and have access to images from incidents and also accidents are of course important and will always be there as a drive. Smartphones and social media platforms mean new opportunities, but the development also challenges journalistic principles of credibility and privacy, and I will add also challenge our ethical standards. We as society needs to discuss and have a critical view on this. The development is fast and it keeps popping up new apps and new technology tools more or less every day. This conference discusses both the technological side, the technological innovations that will bring us even greater opportunities. But this conference also points to examples of do and don'ts. The balance between the ultimate transparency and the death of privacy is central in the closing panel. Our education and our research must keep up with this development. Conferences like today's, where researchers, developers, users, and other actors with different perspectives meets are essential. Universities like UAB have a unique role in facilitating such meeting places. At a classic, broad university as ours, we have different disciplines, from those who are working with the technical side and the technical development to those who are working with the legal matters. We have also, from the beginning of this year, a brand new faculty of fine art, music, and design. Researchers and students from this faculty, I believe personally, can contribute with new and challenging inputs and perspectives on today's theme and issues raised in this conference. And later this year, Media City Bergen will open. MCB will bring the university and the media houses closer together. We hope and we believe that this will result in even more collaboration to the best for research, education, media production, but also overall for society. All the best for today's conference.
Thank you. Our next speaker is the leader of the ViSmedia project and a professor in media studies and journalism at the Department of Information Science and Media Studies. So please welcome Astrid Gynnild. She is also the one that has put together this great program, so I think she deserves an extra applause for that.
Thank you. Thank you, and good morning. It's fantastic to see so many people here. It's fantastic also to know that people have come all the way from the United States, from Finland, from India, and even from Sweden to attend this conference. So last week we were reminded that smartphones are very young technologies. Actually, it was then exactly 10 years since Steve Jobs launched the first iPhone. Right now, it feels like 100 years ago. How could anyone at that point possibly, 10 years ago, imagine that smartphones overnight would change our relationships, our work life, our countries, our love life, and so much else? Imagine a time when nobody yet had heard of tweeting, live streaming, or snapping. So today, 99% of Norwegians between 12 and 19, from 12 to 49 years, have a smartphone. Our society is overcrowded by advanced computers that people carry in their pockets. And we do love the feeling of being in full command of our mobile phone. But imagine then that we leave our cell phones for a while, for an hour maybe, or a few minutes. What happens? Mobile obsession is the most widespread addiction of our time. We keep our mobiles tight even when we sleep. So no wonder then that smartphones are the #1 journalism tool. With a simple smartphone, we know that reporters shoot, they edit, and they upload from the spot in real time. No engineering, no setup needed, you just have to do it. As long as reporters have batteries and access to a network, they can go on air anywhere at any time. And so can, of course, everybody else. So when we're talking about good journalism then, we are mostly concerned about transparency. We are concerned about visual transparency in journalism in particular. And we see transparency as something that is very, very good for society. Transparency is good in all ways, mostly. So we tend to believe that video clips and images speak the truth, that the visuals document reality. But what happens now that we have new technologies and we know that images are manipulated in some way or other most of the time? Or we could ask, where does reality stop and manipulation begin? Do we have to discuss that even more than we've done before? Images provided by the many contribute to grassroots power. When clips and snaps from possibly dozens or hundreds of witnesses tell the same stories, then amateur images take on a new force. In the hands of responsible users, mobile phones contribute to sound transparency in society. But in the hands of immature or manipulative forces, mobile phones open up for stalking, voyeurism, and acts of terrorism, as we too well know. And journalism is in the middle of covering it all. We all know Foucault's concept of panopticon, a situation where a few people in power carry out surveillance of the many. The futurist James Cascio has coined a new term. He calls it participatory panopticon. And what's that? He suggests that with a mobile phone in particular, surveillance is not something that is imposed on us through social institutions of power. Rather, surveillance is something that each one of us actually choose. We choose it as a part of our self-monitoring. So why then the conference on mobile spotting in the media? Actually, I have to admit that this term mobile spotting is totally new. I think it fits quite well, but I'm very interested to hear your points on that later today. So just as well as asking why a conference, the question is, what does mobile spotting mean in the first place? Is it just a cool concept with no content, or what? Let me try to explain what I see as the core of mobile spotting. In English, to spot means to see or notice something, usually because you're looking very hard. To spot means to focus on, to identify, to separate something from something else. So when you are spotting, you find something that you have been searching for, you might have been searching for. So then the question arises, what do we spot? How do we spot it, and for what purposes? This goes not only for journalists, it goes for all of us. Mobile phones are powerful weapons. With the new technologies, there are hardly any limits to what you can use a mobile phone for. We snap, we tweet, and we click. The cell phones are our prolonged eyes and ears, and there is always some audience to exactly your story. The use of cell phones then raise new questions on transparency and accountability. And how do we handle surveillance? What happens with privacy? There seems to be a close relationship between mobile spotting and mobile surveillance. So the burning question in journalism right now is, how can reporters use their visual power in a responsible way? And how can we, as audiences, as users of news, trust that the images that we see are not just a fake? How can we best relate to the new visual surveillance technologies that we use in our daily life? These are some of the questions that we investigate in the ViSmedia project. The ViSmedia project operates with a responsible research and innovation paradigm. Not only do we ask questions, our aim is also to actively investigate, to explore, and to experiment on new surveillance technologies in the media. The technologies are here to stay, and we believe that we have to learn how to live with them in best possible ways, in responsible ways. So today, for example, you will experience that our journalism students, there are about 20 of them here, second semester students, they will be snapping during the whole conference. And this job is a part of their news journalism course that they just started on this week. And I am sure that Yusuf will tell you more about this ongoing experiment here later today. Actually, our new journalism students at the University of Bergen are each fall, when they start at the university, they are introduced to new technologies from the first week on. We take it so seriously that we start out with a 4-day workshop, just getting to know your own smartphone, know how you can use it, all kinds of stuff related to that, so that students learn that the smartphones are their best friends and possibly sometimes also their worst enemies. The goal is to become good friends with them, with the phones on the premises of responsible journalism. We think that to be ready for tomorrow's communication technologies in journalism, students need constantly to prepare for the unknown. They have to engage in risk-taking. They have to do real work in real time as part of the education. And that is why they are doing this job here today too. They started out with a couple of hours of workshop with Yusuf yesterday, and they're going to continue tomorrow. But I just warn you, be prepared for some cool Snapchat surprises today. And I asked a master student that I know pretty well when we're preparing for this conference, what did he think about Snapchat and why was it important for him, etc. He says he's willing to give up Facebook, he's willing to give up Instagram, email, whatever, as long as he can use Snapchat. And then I asked him, isn't it a little time, just 10 seconds, to get a message? Isn't that very little time? And he says that usually when he gets a snap, he doesn't need more than about 2 seconds to know what it's all about, and then he can move on to the next one. And so we're in a safe situation now that Snapchat is used by 100 million people all over the globe. In Norway, it's the fastest growing platform or app among young people. And the Norwegian newspaper VG has started out planning for the Discover news services on Snapchat. And we can imagine that in a few years, that is at least what some people say, that Snapchat might become even more important and bigger than Facebook. That's something. So what we also see then is that there is a tendency to go from snapping to snacking news. Snacking news means that you just pick up some bits and pieces here and there, and that's all you get, and that's all you're interested in. So the 2 seconds, well, I'm very excited to see what's going to happen next, and I'm very excited to see what's going to happen here later in the day. So thank you so much.